of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations.
Bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
Peace, family. This is Tierney Cherie. I am the Steering Committee Chair of We Charge Colonialism, WCC. We're an organization that is pushing for the decolonization of African communities in the United States. And because of that, we look to solutions that do not just do reforms, but ultimately dismantle the system of oppression that has held our people back for centuries and centuries and centuries. And now I'm going to talk about today what is going on essentially with these police brutality instances and what our reaction should be. There's a very famous quote by Maya Angelou. She says, if someone shows you who they are, you have to believe them. And my question to my people is, how much more do we have to see from America telling us who she is, telling us what she does, telling us how the system operates before we actually believe it? Now, a lot of us, we admit that we believe it, meaning that a lot of us outwardly, we state that we do not believe that police brutality is going to be eradicated by these protests. We do not believe that a peaceful protest, if anything, that does not stand a threat to the capitalist colonial system is not going to affect real change. But some of us are still in the dark. Some of us are still trying to grapple with this whole thing and trying to figure out ways and solutions that can still allow the system to function as the system has functioned, while also allow for our people to be safe while the system is functioning. But when you understand how the system is set up, you understand that police brutality is not a thing in itself. It's not a cause. I say this over and over again. Police brutality is a symptom of the overall system. You don't have a system that takes a people and decides that those people are only going to be able to achieve this. And we are going to only allow some people to go outside of this, but ultimately the mass of the people, we have to keep them below this mark. And because of that, you have a lot of those people who are in poverty, a lot of those people who are in circumstances that are dire, and the system has to react to keep those people down here. How does the system react to keeping those people down here, especially whenever their actions have consequences that go outside of the society that it was supposed to stay in? It's supposed to stay in a black society. Well, the system reacts by violence. The system has always reacted by violence. There's never been a time in American history where black people have not been subjected to violence. And so when we understand that police brutality, first of all, it's not something unique to America. In fact, anytime that you see a society that practices mass oppression of black people, it's not a coincidence that those same societies are known for societies where police brutality is rampant. For example, Brazil, you hear about a lot of police brutality against Africans in Brazil. South Africa, you hear about a lot of police brutality about South Africans in South Africa. Why is it that case? Because the society is trying to ensure that these people do not enjoy the riches that they are enjoying on the backs of the people, that those people can only stay down here. And we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that these people down here, number one, cannot come up here, but number two, that the circumstances that they're dealing with because they're down here do not affect us in the dominant society. So that's what we're dealing with. This is nothing new. And a lot of our people, we are still trying to grapple with this. How am I supposed to live in America like this? What about my black son? What about my black daughter? What about the people who have come before us? What about what they would think? You know, a lot of us are still trying to grapple with this reality as if there's ever been a different reality in this country. So it's time to stop pretending. And that's really the message of this video. It's time to stop pretending. A lot of us are pretending that if we keep going on with things the way that they are, that it's going to have some benefit at the end, instead of considering the fact that if we keep going with things the way they are, and the way I mean is that we still keep going with this methodology of dealing with police attacks on black people, of we wait for something to happen, and once it happens, we all react and we all get mad and we all go out and protest, and a lot of the protest gets co-opted by outside white movements, right? But we all go out and protest, and we allow our people to be displayed on TV and have these talking points and become news pundits and all these things, and this is what happens, and then things die out, and then after a while the same thing happens again. It's just a cycle. We're not considering the fact that over time, that cycle keeps repeating itself. What is being reinforced inside of your mind as the colonized subject is that nothing's going to change. That this is what it is. That we can protest and protest and protest, but the system is not going to change. But the question that's not being asked is the methodology of protest actually efficient? Is it actually going to effectively dismantle a colonist state? And common sense says that going out waiting for one of our brothers and sisters to be killed, and going out and wrecking stuff and peaceful protests or nonviolent protests or violent protests, regardless of which one you do, it might cause a reaction in the society, but the reaction is not going to dismantle the system. And what we see happening instead is that the system right now has been revamping. They have been telling you that we are not going to allow your protest to disrupt our function, to disrupt our purpose. So I want to read from a brief article. This is about some actions by police unions, and it's on Slate. Police unions are showing how they really feel about racism and brutality by endorsing Trump. When an incident of police brutality against a Black person in the United States is captured on video, the aftermath follows a pattern. Activist members of the community and certain writers say that the American policing and police discipline are fundamentally flawed. They say that the way that the drug possession charges and civil infraction tickets are pursued in low-income neighborhoods constitutes discrimination against Black people, against people of color, which I hate that term, people of color. You know, who are we talking about? Right now we're talking about Black people, so why can't we just say Black people? But this is what the codes that try to, I think, diminish the movement and try to make it all encompassing, when we know that overwhelmingly we're talking about Black people, and we're also talking about Latinos, but primarily this is an issue of Black people. Sometimes they discover evidence of explicit racism on the part of officers who've been accused of brutality, which they say is evidence of a rotten system. In response, elected officials, police chiefs, and certain other writers say that most police officers are decent people doing a tough job to the best ability. They said that this year's presidential election makes an interesting natural experiment to test which group's viewpoint is correct. One of the candidates, Joe Biden, is critical of officers who perpetuate unjustified shootings and beatings, and supportive of peaceful protests against over-policing. But he says that most cops are good, decent people. That's what Joe Biden says. He believes that the existing levels of police funding should be maintained. Okay? He does not believe that qualified immunity laws should be changed to allow easier prosecution of police brutality. And this is the issue when we're dealing with these people who are telling us that the Democrats are any different than Republicans, because the difference between the Democrats is that they'll say, well, we're against police brutality and this is very horrible, but we're going to support policies that really just allow the system to keep doing the same thing. So again, we're talking about being a colonized people and being in a colonized state. How are you going to disrupt the colonized state when you're still having policies that perpetuate the state? Forget the lip service, forget him going to funerals and him meeting with Jacob Blake's family, forget all of that. The message versus the actions are not matching. They're not going together. What we're seeing is that we're having someone tell us that they're for us, like has historically happened with Democrat after Democrat after Democrat. They're for us, but they support policies that do not do anything to change our reality. So if your policies do not change our reality, you're not really for us. You're really for the system. You're really for the maintenance of the system, no matter how much they try to tell you otherwise. One of his most significant achievements as senators was the 1994 crime bill, which provided federal funding for hiring new officers. He served in a presidential administration that, by the standards of presidential administrations, was exceptionally clean and law-abiding. The other one is Trump, who has a history of making racist comments about non-white people. A number of those comments indicate a belief that predominantly Black and Latino countries and communities are intrinsically undesirable places to live. He was accused by the Nixon administration of systematically discriminating against Black tenants as a landlord. That's pretty bad when Nixon's administration says this. As a private citizen, he fraternized with mafia figures, working closely with a convicted drug trafficker, convicted racketeer, and sold apartments in an impulsive number of organized crime leaders. He made supportive comments about a white supremacist rally hired white nationalists in his administration and defended a white member of the militia who shot 3 protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 2 of the most notable chapters of his presidential public life involved him making false accusations against black people. He encouraged police officers to smash suspects' head against the sides of their cars, which is illegal. A number of his political advisors and associates have been convicted of crimes. So which side are the police on? Do they favor the candidate who believes law enforcement basically means well, as long as it keeps working to root out the bad apples in policing departments, or the candidate with a record of supporting criminal behavior, extrajudicial violence, and racism, and celebrating these bad apples? The country's largest municipal police union, the Police Benevolent Association of the City of New York, picked the latter candidate. Its leader, Patrick Lynch, he spoke at the Republican convention on Friday, and the largest national police organization, the Fraternal Order of Police, announced that it was endorsing Trump on behalf of 355,000 members as well. Police said that they want members of the minority communities to believe that officers patrolling the neighborhoods are motivated by upholding the principle of upholding the law, and that they do not, as a general rule, hold or condone racist beliefs. Those police also keep choosing to endorse Trump. In his convention remarks, which is broadcast live, Lynch said that he and other officers cannot afford to have someone like Biden in office. What does it say about American policing if that's actually true? Now, of course, as the article references, Biden versus Trump, one talks a good game but doesn't do anything to actually affect change, and the other one is very clear on what he is. He's clear. I support the police. I support these actions they're taking, and I want to do nothing that's going to dismantle the state. Now, the outcome is the same, right? The outcome's the same. Regardless of if Trump gets in office or if Biden gets in office, the outcome is still going to be a situation where our people are still being over-policed, still being put inside of a society where our lives are being diminished, and still being put in a position where we're dealing with these officers of a law that was meant to essentially hold our people back and in bondage. So nothing changes regardless. But the system does reinforce itself, and the system does at times show aggression at the idea of people challenging the system. And it's interesting that the police unions, this is the largest police union, right? And we're told that these police overwhelmingly do not support the type of conduct that is being conducted inside of these killings, but then the police union decides that they want to essentially back Trump, who is the loud racist, right? He's the one who openly supports racism, versus Biden's, meaning that they're not even trying to keep up the image or the persona that they do not support the carrying on of racist policies in America. Now, why am I saying all this to say? The system is going to continue to reinforce itself. If you're not talking about dismantling the system, then you're not talking. It doesn't matter whether the system reinforces itself under a Democrat or reinforces itself under a Republican. The system is still intact. All of these people who want to rally without talking about how to change the system are rallying to cause your emotions to get stirred up. They're rallying to have a moment, but they're not rallying to affect real change. As much as I definitely don't want to diminish my brother, I have a real problem with activists like Benjamin Crump, whose methodology is to wait until something happens, and kind of like when there's a press conference going on, he hops on stage and is with the families and all that stuff. And I'm not saying he doesn't do anything behind the scenes, but I'm saying the logistics of the fact that every time I see you is every single time that one of us is already killed, and that there's a photo op, and I don't see you as loud, putting as much energy or putting as much emphasis on the overall system whenever there's not a photo op going on. That's concerning, because this idea that we should keep reacting to the system from a position of victimhood instead of reacting to the system from a position of power, that's the reaction that's going to continue to perpetuate the system and to continue to diminish our belief that we can actually change the system. Let's be honest, now that we see Benjamin Crump, do we look at him and say, is this something that's going to do something, or is it more like a time of mourning? To me, when I see him on stage with the family, it's like a time of mourning. Damn, the system did it again. Damn, police brutality again. Damn, we're dead again. Damn, our people got killed again. It's not a time of militancy. It's not a time to organize. I don't feel a call to organize, to get in organizations that can actually attack the system. I don't hear people talking that way. I hear people mourning. And that's very telling of the fact that these activists who wait for something to happen before they have a real call to action, they're not going to do anything to disrupt the system. So I'm saying all this to say to my people, America has showed us repeatedly what she is. And it's time for us to believe America. Now, what happens when we believe America? What happens when we believe America is we stop waiting for these individual instances to happen. And we realize that we have to become an organized people to deal with a system that is put in place to ensure that our people remain powerless. But the best thing to do is not to wait and to stir your emotions up and to deplete your sense of hope, because understand, hopelessness is what's being reinforced instead of change. Because again, once again, it's going to happen. It happened with George Floyd. I said it was going to happen. Some people didn't like that I said that, but I didn't see this protest going anywhere. Here we are again. James Lake, here we are again. The brothers who were just killed, or we just found out, Daniel Prude and Deon Kay, we just found out about their murders. Here we are again, once again, same position. Breonna Taylor, same position. Ahmaud Arbery, same position. Here we are again. What is our reaction going to be? Are we going to allow for the system to continue to do things to us in the same manner? Or are we going to get outside of the national medias, how they allow us to respond? And are we going to respond within our communities by having intelligent dialogue about what should be done and what can be done? That is what we should be doing. So again, America showed you who she is. It's time for you to believe her, and it's time for you to organize accordingly. So that's all I have for this video. If you want to learn more about WCC, you can go to We Charge Colonialism at wechargecolonialism.org, and you can also go to our email if you have any questions, wechargecolonialism@gmail.com. If you want to become a member, you can also sign up on our website. That's all I have. I will see you guys in the next video. The Justice Bank. So what is the Justice Bank? I've talked before about the fact that we were trying to do a bail project, but we ended up deciding to do a mutual aid fund. The Justice Bank initiative will essentially take members, and if you would pay a very low monthly membership fee. We're going to keep it low on purpose because we are servicing a people who are the most disenfranchised in this country, the most under attack, and it's not reasonable to expect that there's that someone could pay $30 a month, $50 a month, whenever you are of that group. Now, when you become a member, we're going to have a trial period, maybe say after 3 or 6 months, whatever, you are eligible to petition us for help with your expenses. Now, what type of people who are targeted from the prison industrial complex, what type of people would be eligible? Well, because we're doing a mutual aid society, that would be democratic. What we mean is that if you are a member of the Justice Bank, you would have a say in what types of, let's say, charges or offenses that you want to be covered under the Justice Bank. The idea is that all of us are putting our money in collectively because we are a target of the prison industrial complex. Every single day that we walk out, you as a black person, you are seen as a criminal in this country, and that is a fact. And we want to offer a type of protection for our people, and almost like an insurance policy, honestly, that if you do have some type of run-in with the law, if you do have a charge, a criminal charge, that you can count on a mutual aid society to help you and assist you with those types of charges.
Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event. And that's really only happened in the last 10 years. We're at this point now where there's about 1.2 million African American children with a parent who's incarcerated. That's about 1 in 9.